eat more protein, drink plenty of water, lift weights, decrease your intake of ultra-processed food and increase whole foods. If you've started a weight loss medication, then you should have been told all of the above. But in today's video, I want to cover some other tips for if you're thinking about starting these medications or you're already on them that can help improve your outcomes. So if we've not met before, hi, my name's Emma. I used to be an NHS and a private GP. I am still passionate about healthcare, weight loss and obesity and want to help people live their best lives. So here are my top tips for success on these medications. The first tip is if you eat more one day, you don't need to starve yourself the next day or cut down or compensate. Your body can consume more calories one day and then just crack on as normal the next. This might sound very obvious to some people, but to many people who are overweight, who have been dieting for many years, habits like this can become ingrained and viewpoints of food and what you should and have to do. If you are obese, you are much more likely than somebody who is of a healthy or low weight to have disordered eating patterns, and you are much less likely to be diagnosed. In the UK, the most common eating disorder in adults is binge eating disorder, which affects at least 1 in 50, and in the obese population is thought to be considerably more. This consists of a cycle of binge eating and then compensating for the binge by restricting your calories or not eating, which in turn feeds into you binging again. Now, it doesn't matter if you're binge eating or just overeating, and there is a difference between those things, but you don't want to be starting this cycle. So if you overeat one day, that's fine. I hope you enjoyed the food. Crack on as normal the next. It's not a big deal. These little mindset shifts might sound trivial, but to people who have been trapped in a weight loss cycle and a dieting cycle for years and years, they are really important. They not only improve your quality of life to know that you can eat cake one day and then just carry on the next, you don't have to punish yourself for the day before, and they can also stop you sliding into eating disorders. You have such a great opportunity on these medications to not only fix the physical weight, but also to improve your mindset. And the number of people who I speak to who are taking these, who feel that they can eat more mindfully, it's so hard to explain, but they go to their kitchen cupboard and go, "Ooh, I kind of fancy this, but I think that this would be better for me." It's incredible what these medications can do. The other big mindset shift that I think is very valuable comes from finance social media, where they talk about abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset and how it's important to have an abundance mindset to do well and be successful. I think the same is true when it comes to looking at your diet. Instead of looking at how you can further restrict and cut down calories, and for many people who have been dieting for years, going on these medications, the aim will be to restrict their food as much as possible. Don't do that. That's a miserable life. That's not particularly healthy, and it's not setting you up for long-term weight loss. Instead, start looking at your food and working out how you can get an abundance of nutrition, an abundance of different foods on your plate. What can you add to each meal to make it more filling, more satiating? Start looking at food differently. This sounds quite straightforward and a little bit fluffy, but it's actually fundamental. And this is where keeping a journal and reflecting on how you eat, not just what you eat, but your mentality and how you view the world can be so important. For me, journaling was the thing that made me realize that doing a GLP-1 medication would work. And it's also the thing that is allowing me to really, really enjoy my food now. So every time I make a meal, I think, what can I add to this? Because my aim with my GLP-1 is to get to a point where I eat 1 or 2 meals a day and they are hugely satiating and full of nutrition. So every time I make a meal, because I'm used to eating constantly, just eating chocolate and bits here and there, I make a meal of maybe 2 or 3 things. What can I add to this to make it more filling and more fun and more nutritious? And that is what I do with each meal. And that I'm really enjoying. I think that's something that I can keep doing. And that's how I can make the fundamental lifestyle switches that I need to make on these medications. My next point is don't get hung up on your dose. So when it comes to how these medications are dosed, you start on the starter dose and then every 4 weeks you can increase it. The dumb thing is to increase it every 4 weeks, but it's definitely not necessary. I personally have stayed on the 2.5 milligram starter dose because that does what I need to lose the weight, and I am still losing. And I'd say to anyone, if you're still losing every month, you don't really need to increase your dose unless you want to, but you need to be prepared for the risk of side effects. I've had a lot of messages after my previous videos from people saying, "Oh, you've managed to do it on 2.5. I feel like I'm failing because I'm on 7.5. We're not running the same race. It's not a competition. Our bodies are all different. I'm also a very small person. I'm 5'2/3" on a good day. And so I'm very, very small. Some people are taller. All of our metabolisms are different. What we're all doing every day is different. It's not a comparative sport. But from your own point of view, if you're doing well on a dose, don't feel pressure to whack it up. And that ties in really nicely with my next point, which is that you're on your own journey. Don't go off anybody else's story. And I'm really talking about social media people here. There's lots of people on social media who will say things like, oh, your Mounjaro will start to wear off by week 3-4. That's when you know you need to move up in dose. Or they feel that they're really hungry by the end of the week and they're just needing their next injection. I can tell you I don't have any of those experiences. I forget my jab sometimes quite a bit because I forget that I'm on it, and I don't feel any different on the first day that I take it to the 7th day. That's my experience. I also felt like I got more effect from the medication in weeks 5 to 8 than I did in 1 to 4. So each to their own. We're all different, but it's important that you listen to your body. And if you are somebody who's been overweight, you're probably very good at ignoring your body, particularly if you've been in discomfort for a long time. So start listening to your own body again and go off your own body. That is more important than what you hear on the internet. So many of these internet gurus have said the whole point of these medications is because they mean that you can't eat as much and they slow down gastric emptying, that you eat little and often. That's not my experience. Again, I eat 1 or 2 big meals a day. That's how I like to eat. That's because that's how it affects me and that's what I want to do. So don't go off any one person's advice. By all means, watch lots of different people, but then question things that don't seem right. Just make sure that what you're doing with this medication is for you and your body and what feels right to you rather than off other people. And if you need advice, go to your one-to-one clinician who knows you. And that brings me to the final point, which is that you don't need to tell anyone you're on these medications. If you choose to, that's great, that's up to you, but it doesn't make you a better or worse person if you choose to tell people or not. There are lots of people who will commend you for saying, oh, at least you're being honest, but there's a lot of reasons that people aren't honest, and there's a lot of negativity. And if you're sensitive around your weight or you don't feel like you're going to get much support, then you don't need to share this. This is a medical thing that you're doing. You don't need to tell everyone your full list of medications. It's really interesting. Since I've done this video, I've connected with a lot of doctors in particular who are taking these medications, many of whom won't even tell their colleagues because they're afraid of judgment around them, which I think is so sad. But I was having a laugh with one in particular who was telling me about how all her colleagues were saying she looks so healthy in her weight loss. Isn't it great that people can lose weight without these medications and they always look so much better? And she sat there thinking, I'm on these medications, I look exactly the same. We're all very different, and you don't need to set yourself up for negativity. I have this thing about being pathologically honest. That's what makes me happy. I wouldn't feel happy if I wasn't telling people, particularly because it's had such a huge and positive impact for me that I want to share it. And I'm not really that bothered about the negativity, but I'm sure some people would worry about it and it would affect their confidence. So each to their own. I know some people won't care about the topics that I talk about in this video. They'll just want to get thin as quickly as possible, whether that's suppressing their appetite to the point where they can't function or being so nauseous that they're in bed for days. I've seen it all, and that's really sad that people are so desperate to lose the weight, but I can completely understand it in the society that we have. But don't be one of those people. Ultimately, the reason they want to lose weight is often that they think they'll be happier, they think they'll be healthier, but actually happiness, health and losing the weight, you can do them all together at the same time on these medications, and that is so incredibly important.